Bhakti Yoga, or the Yoga of Love and Devotion. Prayer. He is the soul of the universe. He is immortal. His is the rulership. He is the all knowing, the all pervading, the protector of the universe, the eternal ruler. None else is there efficient to govern the world eternally. He who at the beginning of creation projected Brahma, that is the universal consciousness, and who delivered the Vedas onto him, seeking liberation, I go for refuge onto that effulgent one whose light turns the understanding towards the Atma. Svetasvatara Upanishad, Volume 6. Definition of Bhakti. Bhakti Yoga is a real, genuine search after the Lord, a search beginning, continuing, and ending in love. One single moment of madness of extreme love to God brings us eternal freedom. Bhakti, says Narad in his explanation of the Bhakti aphorisms, is intense love to God. When a man gets it, he loves all, hates none, he becomes satisfied forever. This love cannot be reduced to any earthly benefit, because so long as worldly desires last, that kind of love does not come. Bhakti is greater than karma, greater than yoga, because these are intended for an object in view, while bhakti is its own fruition, its own means, and its own end. Bhakti has been the one constant theme of our sages. Apart from the special writers on bhakti, such as Shandilya or Narad, the great commentators of the Vyasa Sutras, evidently advocates of knowledge, Janana, have also something very suggestive to say about love. Even when the commentator is anxious to explain many, if not all, of the text, so as to make them import a sort of dry knowledge, the sutras, in the chapter on worship especially, do not lend themselves to be easily manipulated in that fashion. There is not really so much difference between knowledge, jnana, and love, bhakti, as people sometimes imagine. We shall see as we go on that in the end they converge and meet at the same point. So as is it is with Raj Yoga, which when pursued as a means to attain liberation, and not as unfortunately it frequently becomes in the hands of the charlatans and the mystery mongers, as an instrument to hoodwink the unwary, leads us also to the same goal. The one great advantage of bhakti is that it is the easiest and the most natural way to reach the divine end in view. Its great disadvantage is that in its lower forms it oftentimes degenerates into hideous fanaticism. The fanatical crew in Hinduism or Mohammedanism or Christianity have always been almost exclusively recruited from these worshippers on the lower planes of bhakti. That singleness of attachment, nishtha, to a loved object, without which no genuine love can grow, is very often also the cause of the denunciation of everything else. All the weak and undeveloped minds in every religion or country have only one way of loving their own ideal, that is, by hating every other ideal. Herein is the explanation of why the same man who is so lovingly attached to his own ideal of God, so devoted to his own ideal of religion, becomes a howling fanatic as soon as he sees or hears anything of any other ideal. This kind of love is somewhat like the canine instinct of guarding the master's property from intrusion, only the instinct of the dog is better than the reason of man, for the dog never mistakes its master for an enemy in whatever dress he may come before it. Again, the fanatic loser loses all the power of judgment. Personal considerations are in his case of such absorbing interest that to him it is no question at all what a man says, whether it is right or wrong, but the one thing he is always particularly careful to know is who says it. The same man who is kind, good, honest, and loving to the people of his own opinion, will not hesitate to do the vilest deeds when they are directed against persons beyond the pale of his own religious brotherhood. But this danger exists only in that stage of bhakti which is called the preparatory, Gauni. When bhakti has become ripe and has passed into that form which is called the supreme, para, no more is there any fear of these hideous manifestations of fanaticism. That soul which is overpowered by this higher form of bhakti is too near the God of love to become an instrument for the diffusion of hatred. It is not given to all of us to be harmonious in the building up of our characters in this life. Yet we know that that character is of the noblest type in which all these three, knowledge of love and yoga, are harmoniously fused. Three things are necessary for a bird to fly: the two wings and the tail as a rudder for steering. Janana knowledge is one wing, bhakti love is the other, and yoga is the tail that keeps up the balance. For those who cannot pursue all these three forms of worship together in harmony, take up therefore bhakti alone as their way, it is necessary always to remember that forms and ceremonials, though absolutely necessary for the progressive soul, have no other value than taking us on to that state in which we feel the most intense love for God.